everybody, Mac here. Welcome back to the show. What we have in front of you today is something that in honor of Halo Infinite, because I believe that at the time that I post this video, Halo Infinite will be coming out tomorrow. It'll be going live tomorrow, it'll be coming out tomorrow, and I have a huge fondness, affinity, affection for, whatever you want to call it, for Halo. And I know that's not exactly a revolutionary thing to say. It's like one of the biggest FPSs in the world. It changed the first-person shooter. But I've been there since the beginning. I'm old enough that I've been there since the beginning. I remember picking up Halo Combat Evolved with my very first Xbox and just getting hooked on it on the multiplayer. Back when there was no online, a bunch of us had to get together and system link together, and we still had a blast. And I've just been following the franchise game-wise. I haven't seen the movies, and I haven't read any of the books. But video game-wise, I've been there for pretty much all of them. And we have two figures here from my second favorite game in the franchise, from Halo Reach. My first, obviously, being Combat Evolved, the one that started the whole thing off. Because I've been showing you these Spartan Collection figures with the size comparisons, but I haven't really pulled any out and had you guys take a look at them with me. And I wanted to do that, and I bought Emile a few months ago, and I picked up Noble Six a few weeks ago, actually, and I was saving them both for the release of Infinite. Ideally, there is a Master Chief 2-pack that's coming out. It's a GameStop exclusive, I believe, that it has the original Master Chief, the original armor from Halo Combat Evolved, and the new Master Chief from Halo Infinite. And I was going to do that for Halo Infinite. However, it doesn't come out until the 27th for some reason. I think it got pushed back. And I could have pulled out Spartan Palmer, but I wanted to do Noble Team since I have these two, and I've already opened up Cat, because I really want to finish the Noble Team for Halo Reach. So over here we have who is probably visually my favorite character from Reach, Spartan Emile, with his shotgun, his kukri dagger, all those grenades on his front, and of course Noble Six over here, who, you are the hero, Noble Six from Halo Reach. So without further ado, let's get these open, and we will take a look at Spartan Emile and Noble Six. Okay, first taking a look at Emile right here, let's take a look at the packaging. That I do like the, if you pardon the pun, the Spartan nature of the packaging. That it's just this military green in some places, black in others. It says UNSC up top. You have your big window right here that shows you all of the accessories that he comes with. You have UNSC on the tamped on the side here, and you have this side window to let light in so you can see. Just black on the side with the image of the figure up top. And on back we have a cross-sell of what else came out with this wave. There's Master Chief. I didn't pick that one up because I'm getting him with the 2-pack. There's the Spartan Mark V, which I have that one. There's Jerome, who I believe is from one of the Halo Wars games. I haven't played Halo Wars. Those are the only games that I haven't played in the series. But I want to get him. And then the Gungner, that the helmet, and I think he comes with a rocket launcher. His whole motif is just really cool, too. I got to pick him up. And on the bottom, nothing but black. So that's what I mean. The box is very simple. The box is very Spartan in appearance, very much like the McFarlane toys, where it just lets the toy inside speak for it. So let's get Emile out of the hushed casket, and we'll see what we got. Okay, here he is, Spartan Emile out of the box, and as much as I hate to say this, and I can freely admit this, I think I'm about to show you why too many people don't do reviews of these figures and why people don't get really excited about these figures. These, I'm going to tell you right off the bat, these are definitely a mileage may vary type thing. You'll see what I mean when we get to it. First, let's put the tape measure to Emile and see how he stacks up. And these are some pretty beefy figures. That Emile himself stands at pretty much 7 inches exactly to the top of his, to the flat top of his helmet. So they are big, and as you've seen with size comparison, I kind of like that, because if you want to try to fit them in with like Marvel Legends or G.I. Joe or something and have them be the big beefy Spartans that they were meant to be, especially this generation of Spartan, It actually fits in pretty well because the Spartans, I think, are between like 7 and 8 feet tall once they're all borged out. So now that we know how tall he is, let's get a better look at him, and I'll show you his articulation. Okay, we're going to start at the head here and work our way down as we always do, and pretty much from here up, we're okay. That you have the head, that he can actually look down pretty well. He can look up a little bit, not so much, but he can do a full 360 head rotation. There's no tilt really to his head. And when you pop the helmet off, you can see that it's a very shallow ball joint right there on a hinge. And maybe if we took a Dremel and we routed out some on the inside, although there's not a whole lot there to route, he might be able to get some more tilt, some more lean, especially going back. But that's what we have for that. The arms come up to 90, including this one. Even with this big shoulder pad here, it's pushed out enough that he can get his arms up to 90 degrees right there. There's a butterfly joint in the shoulder. It's very shallow. Arm will do a full 360. He has a bicep swivel, double jointed elbows that get to there. And he has swivel and hinge in and out. And all of his wrists on all of his hands hinge in and out, which I hate because these guys should be hinging up and down because they hold weapons. Also, his gun hand here, his right hand, pops out very easily. I think that hole is a little too big, that if you look, here, let's pop off both hands right now, that if you look at them, it looks like that this one has been routed out a little bigger diameter than this one. So it is, his right hands are very loose, so I might have to get some blue tack to hold them in. Oh, get in there. It bent. There we go. Now, all of these Spartans, they do have somewhat of an ab crunch, and you can even see that they use the armor, the natural line of the armor, to form the ab crunch, which is good. However, the ab crunch, that's it. There's not a whole lot of play to it. And disappointingly, there's even less side to side, because the sculpt is so tight to the armor that the armor doesn't really get a good swivel out of it, and I'm always afraid I'm going to break it if I try to spin any further, and there's nothing on him at the waist. The waist and the crotch piece are all basically one piece. You can even see in the back here that the belt attaches right there, wraps around, and that's a solid piece too. And it's all just, like this I think is glued onto this, and the lower part of the torso down to the crotch piece is all one piece, so there's no swivel in there. Now his legs can come out to the side right about there. His legs will go forward. His legs will go back. He does have a thigh twist, and I like how they hide it with the armor up in here. I think that's really cool. I think this is what McFarlane tries to do, but they just don't pull it off the same as Jazzwares is doing, Wicked Cool Toys is doing. So, yeah, he has double jointed knees that actually move pretty well. Ankle goes back, ankle goes forward, forward facing pin for rocker, and toe articulation, and there's no boot cut, unfortunately. There's no boot cut here, just your thigh swivel. So that is the articulation, and you can see that it's limited. And in some ways, I don't mind that, because they're Spartans. They're not going to be doing big acrobatic moves, okay? Like the leg articulation being a little stiff and not being so great, I don't mind that. They're not going to be doing high kicks. They're not going to be doing karate kicks. They're meant to just run in a straight line and shoot the bad guy, shoot the Covenant. What I do mind is not having this waist twist, because, like, you can't get, like, a real good, like, twisted pose with his weapon held out while he's running forward, you know what I mean? And the ab crunch doesn't really do much of anything. You're better off trying to just bend them at the hips. Now, looking at the sculpt in the Paint app, and this is one of the reasons why Emile is visually my favorite character from Reach, because there is no other Spartan that looks like this character. There is no other Spartan that is decked out like this character, and I love it. Starting with his head up here, in the game, like, he had this skull, and it definitely looked like he took his kukri blade and he just etched it, broke off some of the enamel, broke off some of the tinting of his visor, and just etched this skull into the glass dome of his helmet. And Wicked Cool Toys did a great job doing that. You can see the scrapes on the dome where the glass would be somewhat clear, or where it would hit the silver of the tinted glass. You can see how rough the skull is actually cut into the visor. They did a great job on this, and you can even see, like, down here on the chin where there are scrapes, where, like, maybe he over-scraped and the blade came down and cut the helmet. That is fantastic. This is all basically plastic. That's like an add-on piece. It's just rubber, but it still has some pretty great paint app showing some weathering and some battle scar and some battle damage. And that's one thing I really love about the paint apps on these things, is that it shows this weathering of metal. It shows places where the paint, even on the back here, where the paint of the Spartan may have scraped off during combat, and it's bored down to just gray metal. One thing I don't like is where they put the peg placement here. They molded his shotgun shells into his wrist. I would have preferred if they would have just put the arm on, and then this would have been a clip-on piece, so you didn't have this deep hole cutting through there. But that is what it is. You have his sheath up here for his kukri blade, and then this just bright red shoulder pad that, like, really just draws your attention and stands out compared to the rest of this whole thing. Like this right here, you can tell this is actually a rubber piece that was attached and glued to the leg. I feel like they could have done the same thing right here to cover up that hole. But even when we get down to the shin guards, especially down at the shin guards, you can see the weathering on and the silvering, the wear and tear on his combat boots. This is all fantastic. And something else that they do that I like is that right here you have basically an armored leg, but he doesn't have any sidearms. But all the Spartans have, or at least all the ones that I've come across so far. Whoops, dropped it. Hold on. All the Spartans have this removable piece with this peg on it that you can flip it around and then just plug it into the side, and he has this peg sticking out, so that if he did have a sidearm, you could just attach a sidearm here to his leg, like how it just sort of magnetizes to the side, like it does in the game. And that's really cool, that even the ones that don't come with sidearms, because with all the weapons you get with these, it's definitely a mix and match opportunity. And his shotgun, which we'll take a look at in a second, adheres to his back, magnetizes to his back. He doesn't have a peg here either, but this piece comes out and flips around. And there he has a peg for his shotgun to attach to as well, so you can just stick it onto his back. So the Spartan Collection falls into the category of able to store all of their accessories on them. And as you know, that's a big plus for me. Looking at accessories, Spartan Emile comes standard with a pair of gripping hands already attached to him. There's a slight problem with these, and we'll take a look at that when we look at the shotgun. He also comes with a pair of closed fists for fisticuffs. He has a pair of open hands right here. And he has one left hand that's kind of open with two fingers that he can use for either pointing, holding up to his earpiece, or just, hey, right here, buddy. Other accessories include his kukri dagger, because, come on, how can Emile, if you've played Reach and you know Emile, how can Emile not have his kukri blade with him? As a matter of fact, if I remember correctly, this is what he was wielding when he went down, spoilers, in Halo Reach. He was just stabbing the ever-loving crap out of the Covenant. Now, when you have this, and you have him, you can see this fits very well, very well, very tight up in this shoulder sheath right here. It also fits in his hand. Backwards. It also fits in his hand very tight as well. Like, for as small as that handle was, I was worried that it was going to be loose, but he can definitely get it in his hands and hold on to it so that it won't fall out. And the last accessory that he has right here is this K45 shotgun, and I have to admit that this is a pretty spectacular sculpt for this shotgun, and I especially like the two-tone coloring they give it. I think it looks really good. I think all of the weapons in this line look really good. They really paid attention to detail so that you can tell what is what, because I think they know who their audience is, and I think they know that Halo players are very particular about how things look. And you can see on the side here that it has this hole that if we bring Emile over and we turn this peg around like I showed you before, and we put that there, we have the peg, and then he can just cha-chink, hook the shotgun onto his back. Put it that way. Hook the shotgun onto his back like it's just magnetized there like it is in the game. Now, the problem with his gripping hands comes with the shotgun. Let me pull this off, turn this back around. There's no trigger finger. It looks like there should be, but these aren't cut. So when you push the gun in, it stops at the trigger guard. You can't get it in there. So I have to take a razor knife and cut that. Give me a second. Okay, you're either about to see me ruin my hand or ruin my hand. If this goes out of focus, sorry, but I'm not really watching through the camera. I'm watching live. Just slowly cut down to there. Put this back on. Well, first of all, let's see if we can get the shotgun on there, because that still might be a little too tight. There we go. Not perfect, but better. Might have to shave some down a little bit. Or even take that bottom guard off. But there we go. Spartan Emile is packing heat. Oh. You know, when I was playing Halo 5 and it got to the point where Spartan locked, spoiler alert, for a game that came out like 5 years ago, and it got to the part where Spartan Locke and Master Chief were throwing down, my friend who was sitting next to me watching while I was playing the game said, you know what? The only other Spartan that could have laid a hand on Chief like that died on Reach. And I can't argue with him. So we have Noble Six right here that is basically you, if you played the game. And the packaging is exactly the same. That the only thing they change is the icon image up here and what's on the back. That we have Master Chief, like I said, we're waiting on him. Spartan Mark V, another Spartan Mark V in a different colored armor, but he also comes with a sniper rifle, and I want to get that. I want the sniper rifle. And then Spartan Palmer, which I'm probably going to get Spartan Palmer and then just open her with Master Chief so that, like, the Infinite set goes together too. But Noble Six, let's get him out and let's get him mobilized. Okay, and here's Noble Six out of the box, but before we go any further, it just occurred to me that I went through the intro, I went through Emile, and I never really talked about who makes these things. These are made by Wicked Cool Toys. Whoops. These are made by Wicked Cool Toys, a toy company that was bought by Jazzwares in 2019. And until they came out with the Spartan Collection, I really didn't pay attention to anything that Wicked Cool Toys put out. They weren't on my radar until I started seeing these figures. Now, the only thing that I know is, like I said, they were bought by Jazzwares in 2019, and they are right here in PA, in Bristol, PA, on the east side of the state, out near New Jersey. But other than that, I can't tell you too much about them. So let's see how Wicked Cool did with Noble Six right here. And let me find it. Let's put the tape measure to him. We'll see how tall he is. He should be roughly about the same height as Emile. And yes, he is 7 inches to the top of his helmet. So once again, he is on par with the Spartan line, with the rest of the Spartans, putting him an inch over your 6-inch figures. That would put him right in line with how tall the Spartans are supposed to be. Now, let's take a look at the articulation. It's going to be about the same, and you'll see why when we get to the sculpt. Okay, starting at the head. He can look down fairly well. Can't look up, which was about the same as Emile. No tilt, and he could do a full 360. That's not really the fault of the articulation. It's the big shoulder pads, his big Spartan shoulder pads. And he does have that same ball joint on a hinge. So let's get that back on. Wow, that's tight. I don't think his helmet was meant to come off. His arms will go up a little bit past 90. Whoa, one arm goes up way. Oh, that's about right. His arms go up past 90. He has a butterfly joint that doesn't really rock too much. Full 360 spin. He has bicep swivel. Double jointed elbows that give you a little bit more travel than what Emile had. And the hands swivel and pivot in and out. Now, when we get down to the waist, you can see that he has the same deal, that the ab crunch is carved, is cut into the natural fold of his armor. But he can get a little bit more. Actually, you see that? See, this is what I'm talking about. That it's real tight in there. And unlike Emile, Noble Six is popping off. Mine is really loose. But it's cool because he can actually get some side-to-side rock. And see, he'll turn at the waist to there. But if I try and move him any more, which he should be able to do, it pops right off because of the way this is sculpted and the way this seats perfectly to it. They did form over function with the waist sculpt here. That they wanted it to look good, they wanted it to look tight, they wanted it to look gapless, but that ends up meaning you can't really get too much movement out of it. But you can get more than Emile, so I'll give him that. The leg comes up higher than his does, which is odd, and you'll see why. He has that same thigh twist right there. Leg goes forward. Leg goes back. Double jointed knee that doesn't come nearly as tight. Ankle goes back. Ankle goes forward. Toe articulation. Forward facing pin for rocker. So he has the same mobility, the same articulation as Emile, and in some cases a little bit more, but it's almost sloppy now. Like, whereas Emile's was real tight, Noble Six is almost sloppy. So let's take a look at his sculpt, and you'll see some stuff. Starting at Noble Six's helmet, I have to admit that I love the look of these helmets. I love the sculpt on them. Unfortunately, this one, his visor isn't nearly as reflective as some of the other Spartans are, and I don't know why they did that. I don't know if that means that they're dulling the visors and they're not going to have... If we take a look at any of the other ones, I'll show you what I mean. As a matter of fact, hold on for 1 second. Let me just bring Chief in here, and you can see what I mean by the reflectiveness, almost mirror quality of his visor, and you can see that Noble Six doesn't have that. And this wasn't really unique to Chief. Like a lot of the other Spartans, or all of the other Spartans I have, does this. He does not. I wonder if that means that they're getting rid of this reflective and going for just a standard paint app. I mean, it looks good, but I think you'd agree that what was on the Chief helmet looked better. And once again, we have the weathering, the brushing on the paint app of the helmet. I would have liked to have seen a little bit less on the helmet and maybe more color than just gray, because I'm pretty sure the helmet was black at the beginning of the game, much like the rest of his armor. But you can also see the weathering on the armor right here. You can see the weathering across the breastplate, across the legs, on his back as well. Like, all of this, it looks great. Like, sculpt and paint app, I can't fault them for what they did. The little touches of color right here in his armor. The matches, ties this all together. Like I said, the sculpt and the paint app, I can't fault them for. It's the articulation that's killing me. Kind of like Spin Master with their League of Legends line. Now, if we look at this and we pull Emile over, there's actually a lot of reuse, especially from the waist down. You can see that the legs, you can see that the legs, the boots, everything is reused. This is the only thing that's molded a little bit differently on the legs so that they could have it to receive this pouch right here. Other thing that's very interesting to me, that you saw that Noble Six's legs didn't go as tight as Emile's. It's because for some reason they have different knee joint pieces in here. And I don't know why. Because also, they're very rubbery. Look at that. I don't think Emile's does that. No, Emile's doesn't do that. Emile's is very solid. Noble Six is very rubbery in the knees. I'm not a fan of that either. Not so much in the arms. The arms are different, but the torso pieces, I believe, are the same. Because if you look here on the back, you can see that the back armor is the same, which they're Spartans. For the most part, I think all of them had the same back design. But also, you can see when I pop this off, they have the same torso pieces and the same crotch pieces. The only thing they added to Emile was his grenades along the front here. So there is a lot of reuse for Noble Six. And I honestly don't mind that, because that's more the game than anything else. Because there was a lot of reuse in the skinning for the game, especially when you start to get into mix and match pieces that there were, and you started to customize your armor. There was a lot of stuff that you saw on other Spartans in the game. So I don't mind that. For accessories, Noble Six comes with his gripping hands, which I took a look at them. The hands were reused too. His hands and Emile's hands are the same. And I looked at some of the other ones, and I think they pretty much all have the same hands, which means he doesn't have the cutout trigger finger either, but it's not an issue with him, which we'll see when we get to his assault rifle. He also has a pair of clenched fists. He has his open hands right here, and his left hand two-finger salute. For accessories, he has his M6 Magnum, one of the greatest starting weapons in any game, and you see how this grip, there's a trigger, but his whole hand fits inside there. So you just push that down in, and twist, and it fits perfectly in his hand. Still wish these hands pivoted up and down instead of in and out, but it does look good. I just noticed they even kind of color coordinated it with him. Now, like I said, on Emile, these pieces come off, these thigh pieces come off, and you can switch them around. And Noble Six comes with two, and then you can just take this. It has that peg hole right there on the side, and then it just, let me get in there, doink, fits on, and it stays there. And Noble Six comes with a good standby, the old battle rifle. Oh, the tales I could tell wielding one of these things. How many rounds of ammo I've gone through with one of these. I was so upset. My whole group was so upset. I think a lot of people were upset when Halo 2 came out and they took this out in a place for the battle rifle. I mean, come on, man. It's just not the same. Now, this doesn't have any trigger guard. It's just open, so that whenever you take him and you pop it in, you kind of have to go in reverse, that you put it in that way. And then you have to work the thumb through the back hole, and then it just fits down in there. So you see that even though he doesn't have cut fingers, it doesn't hinder his ability to wield these weapons at all. Now, the final accessory that he comes with, and I thought this was just going to be sculpted on, is that this dagger that's sheathed right here on his armor is an additional accessory. And as far as I can remember, he's the only one, other than maybe the new chief, the new Master Chief, he's the only one that comes with 3 accessories. Go Noble Six. So for size comparisons, let's first stack them up with fellow Spartans. You have fellow Noble team member Cat over here, and of course Master Chief. I love that all of Noble team stacks up with each other, but Chief is still just a little bit taller than everybody else. Here they are with Hasbro G.I. Joe Classified, Cobra Trooper, and Snake Eyes. And as you can see, like I said, they are much taller than the Joes, but I still feel like that's actually scaled correctly. Here they are with McFarlane Toys, Mortal Kombat 11 Scorpion, and DC Multiverse Azrael. And finally, here they are with Lanyard Toys, City Hunter Predator, and Xenomorph Drone, because tell me it wouldn't be awesome to see the Spartans going up against these guys. Okay, I will be the first to admit that these figures are not great. I think they look good. I think they look really good. I think the sculpt and the paint app on them is really good, especially for a $20 figure. But the articulation leaves a lot to be desired, and it's the same complaint I have with the League of Legends figures. Although I still think the League of Legends figures have it on these guys as far as the articulation and posability and playability goes. The Spartans can be a little too bulky sometimes as far as posing goes. Their chest pieces, their chest armor really gets in the way of any two-handed weapon pose. Also, it's just so limited in the head movement, in the waist movement, in the legs. Like, I keep saying, you don't realize how important a boot cut is until your figure doesn't have it. Truthfully, the only reason I am so excited, so jazzed, see what I did there, about these figures is because it's Halo. If it wasn't Halo, I wouldn't care about these guys. But Halo is so near and dear to me. There are so many hours of just playing Halo, of having a blast with Halo, that I can't help but love these things. Having said that, unless you're the most ardent Halo fan, a big player who also collects toys, these may not be for you. They'll look good on the shelf, and I think they look good next to the Joes as well, but you just buyer beware type thing. Mileage may vary, definitely. But I am so glad that we're filling out Noble Team, and I really hope that they finish off Noble Team. I just want the whole team on my shelf. That's really all I want, is all of Noble Team and Master Chief up there on my shelf, and I'll be a happy boy. So let me know if you have these. Let me know if you've had the same problem with these, and if you feel the same way, that you know they're flawed, but you love them anyway. And let me know if you're playing Halo, because who knows, when the game goes live, we may run into each other on the ring. So until I see you there, Merry Christmas, everyone. Stay safe, stay healthy, and as always, thank you for watching.